Mustiala's rose. This is a mystery that we are trying to solve. I have an old aunt that bought a house that was built in the beginning of the 20th century. And in one corner of the house is growing a rose. I recognized it to be the same rose that we have at Mustiala campus, which is called Mustiala's rose. This rose has many different names. In Finland, it's called Mustiala's rose and connected to the agricultural school, and it is said that it was distributed from this school. In Sweden, it has two names, Svearnas ros and Upplands ros. Both those indicates to the people actually of Sweden. Svearnas is directly to the Swedish people's rose, and Uppland is the very old area north of Stockholm, where the Vikings were, for example. Nordensros in Norway, it's the Nordic rose, and then we have a German name, Dornenrose, Kreiselrose. Estonians call it Paruni rose, which means the rose of the baron. And in the United States there is a name also for it, Banshee. Today there are 3 bushes left of Mustiala's rose at Mustiala campus. 2 of the bushes have been recently moved, and they are now close to the former Karjamaja house and between the veterinarian house and that house. And one bush is also growing at Nokkamäki. There are several old photos where we can see that it used to grow in front of Huttula. Between the 2 main entrances of our building where food is served used to be a lot of Mustiala roses. A photo, maybe late autumn or early spring, and you can see that the bushes have been covered with spruce branches to protect them against the winter. What is then said in Finland about Mustiala's rose? Mustiala's gardener Claes Stening in the beginning of the 20th century called it Rosa hybrida amoena. Mustiala propagated it and sold it, hence the name Mustiala's rose. That is what is said, but no proof of that have actually been found. It's propagated by root shots and by bending down twigs in the soil. Claes Stening describes in 1906 that it is 1 to 2 meter high, have light green leaves, large light red fragrant flowers, reminiscent of La France rose in color and fragrance. La France rose was grown by Jean-Baptiste André Gulot, and he was born in 1827 and died in 1993, and he introduced La France rose in 1867. Here you can see a photo of Jean-Baptiste André Gulot and La France rose. Merker wrote that the Nordic rose, Rosa crossbreed with Cyanum, was unmasked in 1987. He claimed that the name was Minette. Minette was a rose that flowered for the first time at Jean-Pierre Weber's garden in France in 1819. It was a Rosa alba. In 1830, Prevost mentions Minette, and 16 years later, prints write that it is a climbing noisette rose. In 1880, Ninter mentions Minetto, and in 1970, Jäger says that it belongs to the group Alba or Lutea. In 1976, one rose was labeled Minette at Rosenverschinses Rosarium in Sangerhausen in Germany. But in 2010, it was written that the rose does not look like Minette according to the descriptions of the 19th century. Synonym with Rosa sueonum is most likely based on plant in the rosary of Sangerhausen that was marked wrongly as Minette. On the picture here to the right, you can see Jean-Pierre Ribet, born 1777 and dead 1866. What is then said about the rose in Sweden? Almqvist writes in 1920, it's unique for Uppsvearnas, so the Svea, the Swedish people's old village in Uppland. It's a relict plant from a long ago, warmer time during which it would have grown wild in the coastal areas of eastern Sweden. Hylander and Nunfeldt writes in 1945 that the rose has been cultivated since ancient times in nearly all of southern and central Sweden and also in Norrland and Norway. A well-developed Sueonum bush can reach a height of 2 meters and become quite voluptuous and can then from a distance be very reminiscent of some form of Rosa alba, most closely then maiden's blush, with which the flower color corresponds quite closely. Maiden's blush is from the 13th century, also called Kuss de Nymph, Incarnata, and Loyalist. And to the right, you can see two different photos of Maiden's blush. It is often claimed that at Sandro Botticelli's painting, The Birth of Venus, the roses here are the Maiden's blush roses. This painting you find in Uffizi in Florence in Italy. What is then said in Norway? This rose is mostly spread into Norway from Sweden. There are suggestions that the rose of the north originates from a cross between a damask rose from Europe and a Virginia rose, Rosa virginiana, from North America. This may have happened in the 18th century. You can see here to the right down Rosa virginiana and up Rosa damascena. Kasanglik. The Norwegians think that the rose looks like the damask rose, Kasanglik, both to the color and to the scent, especially when it's opening the flower. Kasanglik is an unknown rose from before 1612. It is believed that the same rose is grown in Isparta in Turkey and Isfahan in Iran. You can see the Kasanglik rose on the photo to the right. But if we start to look at the map, you can see that Iran and Turkey is very far away, and now the rose is growing very up in central Finland, not that far actually from the North Pole. It's very winter hardy in zone 4 still in Finland. Also, the temperatures doesn't go that much below minus in Turkey and Iran as it goes up in Finland. Let's have a look on some maps from Sweden and Norway. On the green map, you can see Sweden, and the blue are the points that shows where these roses have been found in Sweden. And to the right, you have the Norwegian map and the foundings of that rose in Norway. And you can see it's mostly on the southern coast. What is said in Estonia? When asking, do you have the rose that do not open and starts to rotten if it rains? A lot of yes, I have it will be answered. I tried to do a short investigation among friends and in some groups, garden groups in Estonia, and on the map you can see the dots where people have been telling that they have the rose. It is called the barren rose in Estonia. And here is a photo from Viru in eastern parts of Estonia. In Norwegian research, it is said that this Nordic rose is not much variable in the Norwegian material. In Sweden, you can find it along the west coast, close to Lake Vänern, Mälaren, Uppland, and Norrköping. It's pretty common in southern central Finland in many old gardens. It's also well known in Estonia. Now we have here all the roses that Mustiala's rose reminds of. La France, Kasanlik. Across from Rosa Damascena and Rosa Virgina perhaps, Maiden's Blush. And from Minette we have actually no photo at all, because it seems like it is not here anymore. It seems like there is nothing left in France or in any of the Benelux countries or in England. There is only one Minette, and that's in Sangerhausen, Germany, where then it may be labeled wrong. Down then we have Svearnas rose in Sweden, Minette. Then after the article that was published in 1980s, they thought that the name of it was Minette, and in Norway called then Minette. Then you can find these pictures of this rose. And then we have the Mustiala rose in Mustiala, which we then know that is this original rose that have been growing there all the time. And then we have the barren rose in Estonia. They look now a little bit different, because when they open up, they looks pretty much like this Minette rose from Norway here, or the Mustiala rose. And afterwards, when it starts to come to the end of its flowering, then it looks like this barren rose in Estonia, or the rose Svearnas rose in Sweden. The Minette Sangerhausen in Germany, it's actually doesn't look that much as the rose we know as Svearnas rose, or in Norway, or now in Finland or Estonia. It's not that much. It's actually more looks this Sangerhausen rose as Maiden's Blush rose. Of course, it's difficult to judge anything only on a few photos. Let's have a look then one more time. 1816 Minette from France. Wouldn't have survived in our cold climate. Why isn't Minette in France today? Why would it be found only in the north and that much? 1867 La France from France would not have survived either in our cold climate that well. 18th century damask rose and Virginia rose a crossbreed. Where would this cross have taken place so that it could spread so widely in Finland, Sweden and Estonia? And Norway in the 19th century, how did it become so cold hardy? Before the 17th century, Kasanglik, with the Vikings from the Black Sea area perhaps, mountain areas can be cold at night in Turkey and Iran, but not -20 or -30 degrees as we have up in the north. From the 14th century, maiden's blush widespread in Europe and came up to the north via trade, for example, Hanseatic League. But why did it die out everywhere else in Europe and is only found here in the northern Europe? We don't actually know how much this kind of a rose is in Germany or in Poland. Neither we don't know if it's in Lithuania or Latvia. But with the black rings, it's marked where we have the rose. It's not actually correlating very good with the Hanseatic League's map. The colored areas here are the areas for the Hansa trade. Let's have a look at the Viking Age map. Yes, here it could be yes. There are several routes with it could have been transported up to the north this road. We find it in clear Hanseatic or Viking Age areas. But again, would it have been transported then as a rose seed? It would have been difficult perhaps to take it as a root plant with roots and everything. And the travel is far too long for it to travel as a shot only to survive. So if it would have been transported with the Vikings, then could it have been from a seed and seed sprouting? But this rose is not actually propagated from seeds, it's propagated by root shots. There are many indicators that this rose that we call Mustiala's rose in Finland, with its many names, is an ancient rose that spread around the Baltic Sea area already 1,000 years ago. Of course, you could think about also the convents, the monks and nuns in the monasteries. Could it have been distributed by them? Or did the Vikings go down to Krim? Yes, sure. And perhaps visited the Pakissarai Khan's palace in the beginning of the 20th century. And that palace was known for having a lot of roses as well. It would be interesting to go there to see if we can find this rose in these areas. The rose has many names: Castle Rose, Veso Island Rose, Johnny Rose, Old Rose, East Rose, South Rose, Baron Rose. And people knows this rose when you ask them, do you have the rose that do not open and starts to rotten if it rains? That's the exact description that people gives of it. It's lovely if it's good and shiny weather and its scent is very, very nice. But if it gets some rain, it do not tolerate it at all. It will rotten in the buds and also the flower starts immediately to rotten. We will leave the rose now. There is a lot of things that could be researched on. For example, how much is their genetical diversity among the Swedish and Finnish and Estonian Mustiala's roses? Are they all more or less looking the same? And what about Latvia and Lithuania and Poland and Germany? how well spread is it in those areas?